Welcome to our 4th episode of Criminal Convictions.
Once a police officer believes there's probable cause to arrest a suspected impaired driver, a breath or blood test is given. Usually this is done at a mobile DUI van.
Bianca, you recently spent some time with forensic experts and you saw firsthand how the tests were done and analyzed. Let's take a look.
Have you ever wondered how a person's alcohol concentration is determined from a sample of their breath or blood? Well, today we're going to show you. I've brought you to a laboratory setting to give you an inside look into the world of forensic evidence. First, let's talk with Amanda Gallegos, a forensic scientist with the Phoenix Police Crime Lab. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you for letting us join you today.
You're welcome.
Now, as a forensic scientist with the Phoenix Police Crime Lab, do you work in breath testing?
Yes, I do. I actually work in the toxicology section. Part of my duties are to maintain the breath instruments.
Do you keep track of how many breath tests are given, say how many were given in Phoenix just last year?
Yes, we do.
How many were there?
There were approximately 10,000 breath tests given last year.
10,000 breath tests in the city of Phoenix?
Yes.
That's a lot of impaired drivers.
Yes.
Do you keep track of what maybe the average alcohol concentration was of all of those tests?
Of those tests last year, the average alcohol concentration was a 0.157 grams per 210 liters of breath.
So the average alcohol concentration of our impaired drivers was an extreme DUI?
Yes, it was.
That's pretty frightening. What about the highest alcohol concentration obtained in breath testing?
The highest alcohol concentration from breath testing last year was a 0.410 grams per 210 liters of breath.
So a 0.410, now that's normally an alcohol concentration that could kill a person, isn't that right?
Yes, it definitely could.
Well, in Phoenix, we use breath testing generally, right?
Yes, we
Now,
do.
what do you have here with you today?
I have 2 breath testing instruments that we use in the city of Phoenix. The Intoxilyzer 5000 EN is right here, and this is actually one that we use in the field currently. And we also have the Intoxilyzer 8000, which we'll be using in the field shortly.
Now, on top of the 5000, you've got this kind of interesting looking thing. What is this used for?
This is actually a sample chamber that you would find in any of the Intoxilyzer instruments. This is the sample chamber that actually captures the breath sample, and this is what's used in order to analyze how much alcohol is in a person's breath sample. There's an infrared light source on one end of the chamber. It's going to shine infrared light through the sample chamber. The sample will enter, and once a good sample is captured, that infrared light will be absorbed by ethanol in the sample chamber. And depending on how much ethanol is in the sample chamber in the person's breath, less light is going to reach the detector on the other end. The more ethanol that there is, the less light that will reach the detector.
So the higher a person's alcohol concentration, the less light will come through.
Correct.
Now, how are the results of this breath test then recorded?
The results of the breath test are going to be recorded on a print card. The operator will have inserted this print card prior to the breath test, and this is actually going to print out the entire testing sequence. So the alcohol concentration will be recorded on the subject test on the card.
Now, I see other information on this card, such as the person's name, date of birth, perhaps the person's weight. How is that information entered into the system?
All of that information on Intoxilyzer 5000 or 5000 EN is entered through a keyboard by the operator before they conduct the test.
Okay. Now, over here we have the Intoxilyzer 8000.
Yes.
Does this work the same way as the 5000 in terms of how this chamber analyzes the breath?
Yes, it uses the same principle of infrared light absorption, just like the Intoxilyzer 5000 and 5000 EN do.
Now, the difference here on this instrument, obviously, it's a little more modern, smaller, probably more portable.
Yes, it is.
When the officer is getting ready to administer a breath test to the suspect, what are they asking the suspect to do?
They're going to ask the suspect at the appropriate time, depending on the sequence, to blow into this breath hose. They're going to give them a clean mouthpiece. They're going to open it from the package, place it onto the breath hose, and then ask the suspect to deliver a sample. And once that suspect has delivered the sample, they'll then take the breath hose away from them.
So now this mouthpiece isn't reused then?
No, it's not used for the one suspect only.
How long is the instrument going to be looking for the suspect to blow?
The typical breath test is from 6 to 10 seconds.
And why so long? Why not say 1 or 2 seconds?
We're trying to capture the deep lung air, and so this instrument is looking for 4 different criteria. It's a combination of those 4 criteria of whether or not it's actually capturing a deep lung sample. So once that deep lung sample is collected, it will accept the sample.
Now, in an average investigation, how many breath tests will be given?
We do duplicate testing, so 2 breath tests will be given to one suspect.
Why is that?
We do duplicate testing in order to prevent against mouth alcohol. Duplicate testing is part of duplicate testing is that you have two tests, they're 5 to 10 minutes apart, and you have to have 0.020 agreement between the two tests, and that's to prevent against mouth alcohol.
What is mouth alcohol?
Mouth alcohol is just a condition where there's residual alcohol in the oral cavity.
So if, say, for example, someone had just recently consumed alcohol or maybe even just recently vomited, the instrument would detect that there's alcohol in the person's mouth?
Correct, if that alcohol in the person's mouth is higher than what their breath alcohol concentration is.
Now, how would the officer or maybe the operator of the instrument know that there's been mouth alcohol detected?
One of the safeguards within the Intoxilyzer is that it has a slope measurement detection system. So it's monitoring the slope of the breath sample as it's being delivered to the sample chamber. During that slope, if it drops more than 0.006, it will flag that as an invalid sample, which is an indication of mouth alcohol, not necessarily that it was mouth alcohol.
Does this instrument have other safeguards built into it so that the operator will know if the instrument's working accurately and properly?
Yes, there are safeguards within the instrument itself and also within our testing sequence that we do in the state of Arizona. We have calibration checks at the time of the test, one before the first subject test and one after the second subject test. And those calibration checks or reference checks are of a known 0.100 solution, so we can tell whether the instrument is working accurately at the time of the test.
Are those results recorded as well?
Yes, those are on the print cards that are generated.
I see there it says air blank, calibration check, and then subject test. So
Correct.
What are those reading?
There's going to be an air blank prior to a calibration check, after a calibration check, and prior to a breath test. Those air blanks basically clear out the sample chamber, and we want to make sure that we get 0.000 during those air blanks. It's when there's no alcohol in there. We want to make sure that it's reading a 0.000.
So the instrument will detect whether or not there's alcohol left over from the person who used the instrument before.
Correct. It'll basically purge everything out. That will not be an issue. It's going to purge everything out of that sample chamber.
And now you mentioned this calibration check here is another safeguard.
Yes, the calibration check again is of a known solution traceable to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and that calibration check is also printed on this print card.
Now this print card doesn't have anything printed below other than the subject tests. If there were problems with the instrument, would the officer know that?
Correct. The instrument is actually going to abort the test if it detects anything that would trigger one of those safeguards, and it'll actually print out on the print card invalid test, so the operator would then know that that was an invalid test. And it's not the operator aborting the test, it's the instrument itself aborting the test.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing this with us today.